Welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast.
We have allowed ourselves to become so disconnected and ignorant about something that is as intimate as the food that we eat.
Be prepared to grow your own for victory.
God said, I need somebody strong enough to clear trees and heave bales, yet gentle enough to yean lambs and wean pigs and tend the pink-foamed pullets who will stop his mower for an hour to splint the broken leg of a meadowlark. So God made a farmer.
Hello and welcome to the Modern Homesteading Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about building skills that other than what we consider traditional homesteading skills. There's many skills you can develop that can, help you take steps towards self-sufficiency and sustainability. And today I want to look at what they're not those normal, what we consider homesteading skills. I think, what I want to talk about today doesn't have the satisfaction of walking through a garden and picking a tomato. It doesn't have the sense of responsibility of taking care of livestock. It doesn't even, hold the appeal of preserving your food for winter. These are the less glamorous things. These are the things you may not even want to do sometimes, but they're absolutely necessary. They'll absolutely make you more self-sufficient and sustainable, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Today's homesteading updates, I want to talk about, we've been doing lots of canning around here lately, putting up the green beans, putting up the beets, putting up, more pickles. I made sauerkraut, just lots of stuff going up. I don't know. We've been picking a lot of things lately and trying to preserve it. A few things went in the freezer. A few things went straight into making food that we're eating right now, and quite a bit's going into canning. So we've been doing a lot of that. Lots of pruning. I always find this time of the year, the garden starts getting a little bit out of control. Things start getting crazy. The tomatoes just go haywire. They're everywhere. You got to prune them back. The trees, I've got some trees that just start really bushy trees that really stick out. The mulberry gets crazy this time of the year. Just cutting things back a little bit, making some of the comfrey. Oh my goodness. Talk about pruning back some comfrey. I always feel like I'm wasting a little bit of that, putting it in the compost, even though I know it's a great compost activator. But I covered all the beds, put it everywhere I could think of, fed the animals with it, did everything I could think of to do with it, and I still had a ton of it. So, I'll probably put 2 wheelbarrowfuls in the compost pile. So, lots of pruning back, getting things cleaned up, straightened up, looking better, doing a lot of that here the last week or so. Also finished planting my late season garden. Got the kale in the ground, got some more beets, got some turnips. Let's see, I put some okra, spinach, carrots, just a few things that we're going to be growing later in the season. So, got all that planted last weekend and already a bunch of it popping up. I noticed the beets and the turnips both are up. Some of the kale starting to pop up. I haven't really looked at the other stuff, but yeah, I already got a lot of it already popping up in just a few days. So it's germinating and it's doing well. I got my seeds. This year I took some shortcuts. I had a lot of saved seeds from last year, but there was a lot I didn't have, and I didn't really feel like going and doing an order online. So honestly, I just ran down to Walmart and I picked up some extra seeds, some things I wanted early this spring. And I was very, very disappointed with those seeds. I've used them in the past, a couple of years ago, and I had pretty good luck, but this year I got really poor germination with them, and the stuff just doesn't seem to be doing as well as it, like last year when I used an online heirloom seed company. For this late season, I went ahead and ordered my seeds for this late season planting, and I went ahead and ordered them for next spring as well. And I got them from the Seed Guy, theseedguy.net, I believe it is, and they got like really good seed packages. I've bought from them in the past and had really, really good turnout with their seeds for a really good price. Good heirloom stuff. A lot of it I've seed saved and I've been able to use year after year, but I needed another package because a lot of my seeds were getting kind of old, and I just didn't want to. I just thought, because the last time I got a package from them was 3 or 4 years ago, and I was like, well, those seeds are getting pretty old, so some of them that were left. So and I didn't seed save some of that stuff when I should have. So I bought another package. It was like an $70-something package with tax and shipping and everything. And, I always like their seeds. So those are what's already popping up and germinating real well. So, again, I'm seeing real good results from what I get from them. So, Highly recommend them. I did have a little bit of a shipping issue with them, and they had made a mistake, and I got a hold of them, and they quickly resolved it, even made a phone call to me and resolved it really quick. So very good customer service. And, mistakes happen. I don't hold that against them. It's just they kind of got something overlooked, and, it says 3 to 5 days on their website. Well, several, like 10 days later, I hadn't seen that it shipped, and I called them, and some things got overlooked in the process there, and boy, they were very apologetic and very quick to ship it out to me. And I think I got it just a couple days later. So quick resolve. And like I said, I don't hold anything against anybody when mistakes happen. It's how you handle that mistake. That's what makes a difference with me. And they handled it very, very well. And so I'll definitely always do business with them as long as they, keep doing things like that. So very pleased with their operation. And they're, like I said, they're a small operation, couple people, husband and wife, I believe, just doing it. And they do a lot of business. So check them out if you're looking for some seeds. Let's just jump into our main topic, the other homesteading skills. I guess why I wanted to talk about this is because just recently I found myself knee deep in a homesteading project, literally. And it's not the kind of homesteading project you want to do. Probably not even the kind of homesteading project you want to hear me talk about. But it's a homesteading project nonetheless. And when we talk about homesteading, it's easy to picture going out and tending that garden and feeding that livestock and sweating in the kitchen, preserving and putting up the harvest. But, homesteading goes far beyond those things. And sometimes it looks like everyday upkeep and maintenance and repair around your homestead. And you probably seen me post about this if you follow me on social media or anything. But recently I had an opportunity to be reminded of this when I had a main sewer line issue. And eventually I ended up having to bust up my cement floor out of my basement all the way across my basement floor, dig down about 3 feet to replace my drain pipe. And this got me thinking about how sometimes we don't tend to focus on the skills enough that make us self-sufficient in doing these kind of repairs on our homestead. So today, let's just talk about 4 areas of skill building that can help us to become more self-sufficient in what I like to call the other homesteading skills. And the first one I'll talk about, just because I had the recent opportunity to hone my skills in it, is plumbing. Plumbing deals with 2 things. It deals with water coming into your homestead and wastewater leaving. And one is obviously more pleasant to work with than the other. I mean, dealing with the sewer lines is definitely messy work, and it's not pleasant. Neither one are pleasant, really. You're usually in awkward positions up under a sink or, down in a basement up under a crawl space or something like that. So it's not always the funnest thing to work on, but it's important to know how to do it. Learning to work with plumbing can come in real handy for a lot of homesteading projects, such as irrigation systems, rainwater harvesting systems, building aquaponic systems, livestock watering setups, and many of the projects you actually enjoy doing and working on around your homestead. Plumbing will help you dive into those. But the things you will be most glad you learned plumbing skills for will be basic plumbing repairs. When something breaks or just isn't working right, repairs can cost hundreds or even thousands of dollars, and many times basements can flood and can ruin things like furnaces, water heaters, and that can only just add to the expense. So being able to diagnose and quickly repair a plumbing issue can be really important. So what kind of things might you want to focus on in learning plumbing? Well, you might want to first find out what kind of plumbing your homestead has. Does it have copper pipes, galvanized steel, PVC, PEX? PEX is kind of recent on the scene, and that's a really, really good one to work with. I'm really enjoying that one. I've kind of did a lot of changing over. Actually, when I first moved into my house, we had a lot of galvanized steel pipes. This is 20-something years ago, and started changing a lot of that over to PVC as things have busted, and we just kind of changed things and put PVC in. But now I'm really seeing the value on the water lines, your incoming water lines, of switching over to PEX lines, and it's a lot easier to work with and has a lot of benefits. But find out what you have and even determine whether you need to switch some stuff over or not as time goes on. But knowing what your homestead has will kind of give you an idea on the areas you need to learn. Like, for instance, if you have copper pipes, you're going to want to learn how to solder those, put those together and solder those pipes. And it's a skill. I mean, there's a little trick to that. My grandpa taught me how to do that when I was probably like 12 or 13. I remember he had to go and he was just a handy man. People would call him, and he'd go around and do a lot of jobs for people, so he'd take me with him sometimes. And I remember him showing me how to take a propane torch and solder copper water lines. So that was kind of cool. But learn how to fix those things. Learn how to work on those. Learn how to make repairs on all the types of plumbings your homestead has, whatever that is. Copper, galvanized, steel, PVC, or PEX. Just learn about those things. Learn how they work. Learn how to put them together. Purchase the necessary tools for working on your plumbing. There are some specialty tools for some of that stuff. For years I cut PVC with like a Sawzall or a hacksaw, and then I found something called Pvc Cutters, and wow, snip, snip, snip. You can it cranks up and kind of ratchets, and it just pops that pipe and cuts it. And it makes, when you're working with PVC, it makes them so much quicker and easier to work with. So something like that. Just figure out the tools you need. Keep the glue and things like that on hand that you'll need to make a repair, and or whatever you need. You might need the plumber's tape to seal up threads that you're putting together and things like that. Keep those things, find out the necessary tools for working on your plumbing. And then also keep a few pieces of your type of plumbing on hand. Keep a few feet of whatever you have, the sizes you might need. Keep some couplers and things like that, some emergency pieces that you can make repairs with quickly if you need to. Also, figure out where to shut off your water. Probably the most important thing is figure out where to shut off your water at. Always know that about your homestead. Know where all the shutoffs are, where you can shut down the water. If you blow a pipe, how can you quickly get that shut off and possibly reduce the amount of damage that happens because you got that shut off quickly? So those are just some tips for learning plumbing and what you might want to focus on learning. And I'll tell you, folks, and I'll mention this several times, YouTube. I almost hesitate and feel weird even mentioning that YouTube is the best place to learn these things, but it just is. I mean, when you can watch how to repair something, it's so much better than a lot of other ways you might learn. I mean, obviously, if you have a friend who's really good at this, calling them up, having them come over and help you and show you hands-on is the best way to do it. But second best is really YouTube. You can kick up a video and it can show you step by step on how to make a repair on something. And there's a video for everything. So I'll probably mention that on every one of these things I'm talking about today. But yeah, kick up YouTube and it can show you how to make a repair. The second thing I'll talk about is carpentry. Basic carpentry skills have also served me very well over the years on my homestead and can also make you more self-sufficient, as well as save you a lot of money. It can be helpful when it comes to building coops, pens, building arbors, trellises, just about any other building project on your homestead. You'll probably find this skill helpful. You'll also find this skill is probably most used and helpful in making just basic repairs and maintenance on your homestead. Replacing some rotten wood or something like that in your house. I mean, just finding places where it's going to be helpful. Working in the barn and replacing some boards here and there or something like that. Building a fence. I mean, I find that I use my basic carpentry skills all over the homestead. And I'm thankful. It's something that I grew up with. My dad, he taught me how to build things at a very young age. I mean, like, at 6 or 7 years old, he would have us pulling nails and hammering nails into things. I think, one, because he would buy a lot of used lumber. Always. He knew guys that were tearing down houses. We even tore down some houses and barns, things like that. And we reused lumber all the time when I was a kid. I remember we had piles of used lumber. We'd stack it. Me and my brother's job was to pull all the nails out of that wood. So we'd go out there with hammers and crowbars and we'd get all those nails. And then my dad was so frugal that we even had to sit there and straighten out any nails that were reusable. Like if they were not really bent up, we would have to sit there and tap them out and straighten them out and put them in jars. So we always had buckets and jars and whatnot of used nails that we could reuse. So me and my brother got a lot of experience pulling nails. Well, then we also got really good at driving in nails. My dad would have us hammering things together, putting things together. So I got a lot of basic knowledge at a very young age on carpentry skills. Learned how to use saws. You start with hand saws and move on into power tools, using skill saws and sawzalls and even table saws and things like that. But I think one of the most important things you can learn when learning how to do carpentry work is learning how to make accurate measurements. That's something my dad taught me at a very young age that has been very handy my entire life. The old measure twice, cut once quote. You always want to do that. You want to make sure of your length, and cutting to an accurate measurement is very, very important. And so learning how to make accurate measurements, learn how to read a tape measure and a ruler very accurately. I mean, right down to at least the 16th of an inch. You want to be able to read that and get a good handle on that. It's not difficult, but there are some people who just don't know how to do it. So learn how to do that. Learn how to read a tape measure. Learn your basic carpentry skills. If you're not good at driving a nail, you can do it. Just practice. It's one of them things that experience will be a great teacher, and the more you do it, you'll get better at it. Nowadays, a lot of things put together with screws. I mean, my cordless drill is the most used tool on my homestead, and I have a Phillips screw bit in it, and I have a lot of wood screws and drywall screws and things like that I use to put things together with. And I keep a lot of screws on hand, and I use that drill several times a week to screw something together. Very seldom do I actually nail anything together anymore. It's almost always put together with screws, but occasionally there is something I nail together. But you learn those basic carpentry skills. Like I said, cutting, drilling, hammering, and nailing and things together. Those are really important skills to develop, and they will serve you well on your homestead for sure, and save you a lot of money, and be a great addition to adding, really useful and beautiful things to your homestead. Good carpentry skills can do that for you. The next thing I want to talk about is something that can be kind of controversial on whether you should even mess with it or not. But in the way I'm going to talk about it, I think it's something you do need to know, and that's basic electrical knowledge. This is one I mentioned carefully because making mistakes with basic electrical repair can be very dangerous. Not only could it kill you with the voltage, it can also cause fires and things like that. So be very, very careful and sure of what you're doing when you mess with electricity. It can be so dangerous, and that's why I also believe it's important, very important, for you to have some basic knowledge about how it works and even be able to make some minor repairs when necessary, possibly. One thing you should definitely know how to do when it comes to basic electricity is know how to shut the power off to any one area and or your entire homestead through your breaker box. Know how to do that. That's very, very important. Be able to kill the power to that, to where you might be working or there might be a problem. You should learn how to test an outlet or wires with a tester to see if there's electrical power present, especially if you're going to work on it. Get you a nice tester and figure out how to use it. There's kind that you plug right into an outlet that'll tell you. I don't really like that because it's only useful for that one thing. I mean, it's easy. I mean, I like that part of it. But learn how to use a probe tester where you can actually poke it in there and touch wires with it, touch terminals with it and a plug-in, touch light sockets, things like that, and determine whether there is electricity present. Learn how to use a tester. You should learn how to identify possible issues like frayed wires or signs of overheated wires, plugs, switches, or other electrical devices. Look for the burn marks, things like that. Tell when something's hot. Tell when there's possibly an issue, an electrical issue. Learn how to troubleshoot when there's not power getting to something. Learn how to find, backtrack and look at the breaker first, and then you start searching through wires and things like that and determine with your tester where voltage is going to and where it's not going to, and then try to narrow down a problem. Learn how to do those kind of things. Troubleshooting is important because it can help you determine on whether it's something you can fix or not. And you should probably learn how to make repairs on things like wires, plugs, and switches. If you're not comfortable with it, you don't feel like you know enough about it, you don't do it. Just don't. Get help. Pay for somebody to do it if you have to. But I think it's a very valuable thing to learn how to do. Again, the number one thing in that, learn how to shut the power off to those things that you're going to repair. And be sure about it. Learn how to use that tester so you can be sure about it. But I think, making repairs on, wires, plugs, and switches is a relatively easy thing. And it can save you a lot of money. And it makes you more self-sufficient in learning those things. So I think it's an important thing to learn, at least the basics of it. Even if it helps you just narrow down on what you need to call somebody to repair, and maybe possibly keeps you from getting ripped off from an electrician because you know enough to be able to determine whether or not what they're saying is true. So just having some basic electrical knowledge is important. The last thing I want to talk about is mechanical skills. Being a mechanic on your homestead, knowing how to do maintenance and repairs on the equipment you own can be a very valuable self-sufficiency skill. This can go from anything from the vehicles you own to the lawnmower you have to your weed eater to your chainsaws to just any equipment that you have on your property, tractors, whatever you have. Knowing how to work on your equipment can save you a lot of money and it can help you get many more years out of your equipment. The kind of things you would probably want to learn is how to do an oil change, how to do a tune-up, change your plugs, change wires, things like that. Unless you have diesels, then you're getting into other things, of course, right? Learn how to do that tune-up. Learn how to tune up your lawnmower. Just throw a spark plug in and change your oil on that. Learn how to, tighten the chain on a chainsaw and lube up a bar or change the plug, do things on a chainsaw. I mean, every piece of equipment you have is a little bit different. Learn how to do the basic maintenance on that. Learn how to grease and lube each thing you have. A lot of things have grease certs. A lot of things don't have grease certs these days. A lot of older equipment does. I've noticed a lot of newer equipment doesn't. A lot of it's sealed bearings, things like that, and they don't have grease certs like they used to have. But what does have a grease cert, learn how to grease those things. Learn how to replace belts, things like lawnmowers, your car, your tractors. If you have a riding lawnmower, things like that. Learn how to change the belts on those things. It's a very valuable skill to have. Learn how to just do basic maintenance, repair, mechanic skills. Learn those basic mechanic skills. Learning how to use ratchets and screwdrivers and pliers and cutters and the things that you would use to make adjustments and do tune-ups on things. Very important skill. Again, I've been doing that since I was a young kid. My dad, before he ever got in the trucking business, he got in the trucking business when I was a teenager. Before that, he owned it was a body shop / mechanic shop. It was in a small town here in Indiana, and it had a 3-bay mechanic shop and a 3-bay body shop on the other side. And I worked in the body shop and the mechanic shop for years and years for my dad. So I learned a lot about painting cars, working on cars, everything to do with cars. And, we just learned how to do everything. My dad was very mechanically minded guy, and he did a good job of passing that stuff down to me, and I'm very appreciative of that. So it's definitely a skill that can come in very, very handy, and even makes you an important person for other people to know, because the more you know about things, all these skills that I'm talking about, it makes you a person who people love to be a friend with, because you can help them do things as well. And that's always a great bartering thing to have. If you can barter your skills, it can come in pretty handy. You might want to just do things because you're friendly and whatnot, and that's a great thing to do. I do a lot of that, but it's also nice to say, hey, can you help me do a tune-up on my car, and I'll buy you this, or I'll give you whatever here, or give you a couple dozen eggs if you don't raise chickens or whatever. I mean, it can be a valuable barter skill, any one of these things, for helping out other folks. So those are what I want to talk about today. I think these are these other homesteading skills that we don't talk enough about, but are in a lot of ways just as valuable, and maybe sometimes even more valuable than those things that look good on the website, the feeding the animals and the gardening and all that kind of stuff. So that's what I want to talk about today. Again, I want to make a couple recommendations. YouTube is without a doubt going to be your best resource for learning these skills. Another thing I'll tell you about is, I'll put a link to it in the show notes, is the Chilton DIY Manuals. When it comes to doing mechanic maintenance on your car, and some other equipment too, they make manuals through Chilton that are really, really useful. I have a lot of Chilton manuals on my cars and that I've owned, and the ones I currently own. And YouTube is valuable, but there's just times you need to look up a torque rating or something like that on something for your car. Chilton manuals are really handy for that. But just having internet access is pretty valuable for looking those things up as well. But having a book on hand, I'm a book guy, so having a book on hand is always useful to me. On our Homestead Life segment today, what am I going to talk about that's better in my life because of homesteading? And that is canning the harvest. And I don't mean the actual act of canning that has made my life better. In fact, that's a lot of hard work, and I don't enjoy that all that much. But what I mean is that feeling you get when there is, a foot of snow on the ground, and you reach into your cupboard and you pull out a jar that has been in there for months, and you fix a healthy, tasty, hot meal that came from your garden in the middle of winter. And that's a great feeling, and it's something that I think my life's better because of, and that has entirely to do with homesteading. I wouldn't be doing that if it wasn't for homesteading. So canning is a really great part of my life, and I hope it is in yours as well. So that's what I enjoy about the homesteading life today. Thanks for joining me today, folks. Hope you enjoyed this episode, and we'll catch you next time. Happy homesteading, and God bless.